Hello, everyone. Welcome to the virtual Fireside chat. Today, we are going to discuss on a very interesting topic, the state of marketing measurement in 2026 and beyond. And to discuss this, we have 5 leading marketing measurement experts across the globe. Introducing first, Archana Roche, Global Head Marketing Measurement Expert, Truecaller. Archana, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Venkat. Nice to be here. It's Archana Roche.
Archana Roche, yeah, thank you. Next up, we have Tony Evans, marketing science veteran, often called the James Bond of marketing measurement, ex-Meta marketing science director, and also an expert in the EMEA region, currently leading his team with ONB.ai. Welcome, Tony.
Too kind an introduction. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for the invite.
You're welcome, Tony. Next up, we have Robson Tigre, Dr. Robson Tigre, causal and experimentation expert, and also the author of the very famous book, Everyday Causal Inference. He gave me a sneak peek of the book, and I highly recommend people read it. Welcome, Robson.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You're very kind, and it's my second year here because I loved so much the first one that I said next year, please invite me again. So I'm here. Thank you.
Next up, we have Daniel Althaus, Bob the Builder and Joe the Plumber for MMM, Senior Advisor at Transunion, and a marketing measurement expert. Welcome, Daniel.
Oh, thanks for having me back, Venkat. This is awesome. Looking forward to meeting everybody.
And last but not the least, Josue Hernandez, Head of Agencies, LATAM X, and also President IAB Mexico. Welcome, Josue. How are you?
Thank you for hosting me. It's super interesting to start the day with these brilliant minds.
Welcome to all our distinguished panelists today. So without further ado, let's get started. First up, we are going to discuss on marketing mix modeling. In the last 5 years, 100+ companies have sprung up, and a lot of the big weights also have thrown their hats into the ring, namely Meta coming up with Robin and Google coming up with Meridian. What explains this sudden renaissance in MMM? Do you think this demand will continue this year and beyond? So in the order of panelists that I see on the screen, Archana, the question to you first. Why do you think there's a sudden renaissance in MMM?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on the panel. So I at Truecaller, I have seen this very much firsthand, why MMM has come back so strongly. I think it's less about, better models and more about the kind of answers that CMOs are seeing right now. Mm-hmm. So today's CMO, they're not only operating, under tight budgets, but they're also having these tighter CFO scrutiny, in fact, very intense. And for many years, we all know, how digital marketing has trained us to believe that, if you see a click, you're seeing causality. And of course, that belief no longer holds true, what with the privacy changes and walled gardens and your fragmented journeys, it has broken all these beliefs, the click to conversion story. So attribution is not giving you the full picture. We all know that, but the CMO is realizing this even much more every day. And at Truecaller, we've seen this early, because our impact shows us that trust and confidence, when they come at decision moments, that is where things happen and not at clicks. So, for example, when somebody is feeling safer answering a call, or engaging with a business, that value is seen converting later, but it is showing somewhere else. So therefore, MMM is the only way we can help CMOs see that full picture and prove ROI in a way, that they can confidently defend to their CFOs. So that's why I would say that this renaissance, it will definitely continue because MMM can then be seen not just for the CMO, but also as the CFO's confidence model. It's more like a real budget protection tool.
Yeah. Very nicely explained. Tony, what's your take on this?
Yeah, it's been around for ages. I think the renaissance is because of data loss in other techniques. I think it's going to continue and to get stronger. Like it does two things in my mind at the moment that the CMO really needs. It unifies the team, and a lot of the team in marketing at the moment have all got their own methods of measuring things. And so to have one source of truth, if you can consider this to be the source of truth, it makes it really powerful. So instead of the fight between the SEO team and the influencer team and the meta team, like all of a sudden you can have one source of truth. And the second thing that it does that is incredibly useful is it brings in other variables from the business. So being able to actually include those rather than just looking at like, your meta results that may be correlated to sales, right? Instead of doing that, bringing in the other variables that actually affect your sales, competitor activity, etc. Well, that's really powerful for any company. So for those two reasons, I think it's definitely deserves a renaissance, and it's certainly here to stay.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Daniel, I'm pretty sure you must have also seen this renaissance happening in the European region. What's your take?
Yeah, sure. Maybe to bring in a different perspective, because I definitely agree with Roche's and Tony's takes on this. So when we like early in the phase, I think 2019, 2020, I would say we saw a lot of old brands like old economy legacy companies coming in and using MMM because they wanted to know which part of their budget should they shift into digital touch points, digital marketing, and a lot of them were in trouble, also under pressure. Aging brand, retail sales faltering, so they needed to not only assess their marketing but also kind of assess production factors through an MMM. And what we're seeing now, what's surging in now, well, I don't know if we can still say new economy, but it feels like it holds true. New economy, like competitors, upstarts, more digital companies that are asking, which part of our budget should we shift offline? How do we advertise, where we don't have clear internal attribution numbers, and are those true in any case? So I think that's a lot of interesting other companies that are now entering the marketplace. So I do agree. I think it will expand. It gets also democratized, so it's more open, more transparent. A lot of companies are in the space developing tools not only for the largest retailers or largest clients, but also for small and mid-sized companies. So I expect the market to expand further. Yeah.
Robson, I know you mainly deal with experimentation and causal experiments, but I'm pretty sure that you must have seen a lot of noise being created around MM, and you also have talked about it briefly in some of your posts. Do you think that we are kind of encroaching into your area of expertise, or leveraging causality more into our MMs?
Well, if I may contribute to the colleagues first, I think that there's not much tools that can offer this jointly optimization of spend between channels. MMM can, and every other day there is a new channel appearing. For instance, now OpenAI is going to announce advertise. This is one point. Daniel mentioned transparency. I think we are entering to this point that people will start to understand the tools. And as your own products offer, there is also this new phase of scrutiny. So you can scrutinize what MMM suggested. So, and this goes into the second question about causality. It's really hard to disentangle what is happening between the channels, like how one spend spills over to another, to the impressions generated by another channel and so on. And although the MMM has this urge to be causal, fundamentally it can't. And it's not because it's a fault of MMM. There are models that are aimed to give causal estimates, like double machine learning, that they can't if some assumptions are not met. So it's our task to create conditions such that the MMM can answer causal questions. So, well, the goal was causal. It's hard to achieve this goal, but it seems to be the best tool so far that can consider different channels in order to optimize in this causal direction.
Understood. I know Daniel wants to answer, on the MM is implicitly causal part, but I'll definitely get back to you, Daniel, on that. I know that's one of your favorite topics to talk about. But yeah, because Robson, touched upon, OpenAI and Gen AI. My next question is going to be to you, Tony. There's a lot of talk about, vibe coding. Generative AI has been the talk of the town for at least 2 to 3 years. Perhaps it will be so for the next upcoming decade as well. So with regards to vibe coding, do you think MM can be vibe coded? If not, why?
So I want to be a little careful here, not to poo-poo vibe coding, like, because a lot of people do this, like when they are an expert in a particular field, and they're just like, how can anyone else possibly, with a small amount of coding, be able to achieve something that I've spent years building? And I think that, like, you could look at website build and stuff like that, and you could see how people could vibe code their way to that. Where I do think that it's very dangerous is that a little knowledge is a dangerous thing, right? Like, you could build a regression in Excel, and I've seen people do that without any knowledge of the statistical test they need to run, or no background in academia, which would help them understand why a simple kind of regression like needs to be tested. They're just like, this regression is fine because Excel says it's fine. And so I think that's the danger, that like a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. Vibe coding makes it seem very easily. Makes it seem very easy. And so I think that we have to be very cautious around that. I don't believe, unless someone's got the underpinning knowledge of how bias is brought into these models, I don't think it's a sensible thing that someone should go ahead and vibe code it. The bias is the biggest thing, right? Like the testing on it and the bias that they can bring into the model inadvertently are the two things that people should be very, very conscious of. But if someone has got a background in stats, they understand how bias can be brought in, they understand the statistical test to run, by all means, like vibe code your way to an easier way of doing MMM. If it comes with no knowledge at all, then it's going to give you answers in a company that are not to be relied on, and ultimately we want answers that we can rely on, right? So that's why I think it is a dangerous thing to do.
So a good worker and a good tool is always a great combination, I believe, right? Daniel, what's your take on this?
I just vibe coded Google Meridian a little bit. It's just extensions, just stuff I wanted to do or wanted to be able to do, and I wasn't too sure about it. But yeah, that worked out well. But I think what you need is, like what Tony mentioned, you always need a validation of some sort. So you end up doing the model, in shorthand anyways, or you write the code yourself to see if the vibe code actually does what it's supposed to do. So a lot of times I think that's the real challenge, to find a way of validating your work and putting it in a different perspective. What's also interesting about vibe coding is that it hallucinates. It comes up with functions that don't exist, which can be pretty obvious, but also sometimes really tricky if the function does exist but does something different. Interesting experience. And I have the feeling that Google Meridian documentation was written by AI. And because there are some things in there that just definitely don't exist there, are not around. Like they're just, rudimentary functions that aren't built out yet, or you have an S on a function where it's not supposed to go. Like the function works, but leave out the S. So I definitely would bet money on that.
Yeah, maybe Google would say that, some agent from the future wrote it and they're not telling us about it.
Yes.
But yeah, Archana, what's your take on this?
Well, I completely echo with what Tony and Daniel are saying. I mean, you can accelerate the MMM, but you cannot, wipe code causality. I mean, they are great at, you can write the code faster and everything, but MMM is going to fail because not of the code, but because of the poor assumptions. There is no context and the domain knowledge. So even, at Truecaller, for example, the hardest part was never the Python. It is never the Python. It is more on deciding, what are the behaviors that are actually representing what our platform strength is about, trust, confidence, the intent, and that is what we're trying to prove. So yes, AI will speed up things, but the judgment, the measurement leadership is required to determine, whether these answers are even right in the first place.
Joshua, any final takes on this topic?
Well, I like to use always, I am always the last one answering, so I try to find an argument during the process, but I like to use always an analogy. You can use Waze, for example, to go from point A to point B in any city, and it's going to calculate what is the fastest way to go from point A to point B. But maybe you go through the most dangerous part of the city, and maybe you lose your car from point A to point B if you don't have the criteria, if you don't put the criteria on the model, let's say. And I am sure that all of us have been experienced that kind of situation. So with bytecoding is the same. is a great assistant, but you need to put your criteria on top of the model, because if not, you can be in a dangerous situation.
Uh, yeah, so just flipping the script a bit and, to ensure that Joshua speaks first, I'll ask this question to Joshua first. Of course, there are unique challenges when it comes to, getting an organization ready for MMM. We luckily have 4 experts from 4 different regions, so we can get 4 different perspectives. So first up, Joshua, what are the unique challenges of getting an organization ready for MMM?
Back in time, 20 years ago, I remember that when you go to a company and try to do a website, you see how well that company works. Because you start to say, we need to do the about section, and you see that all the departments have a different idea, for example, right? And it was a great exercise to see how well a company works 20 years ago. Right now, I feel that MMM is a great photography about how well a company works, and what are the different conceptions that they have. When you go to a company and say, hey, we need to collect the data, to do an MMM, this is the final goal that we want to achieve, you see how well they work, if the data is collected in the same way, if they have a collaborative culture, and blah, blah, blah. So I feel that, of course, we can talk about the data silos, and blah, but at the end of the day, I feel that MMM, the challenges of the to achieve to do an MMM are the same that they are facing as a whole company. Depending of the company, the challenges are going to be different. Sometimes they don't want to share data. Sometimes they don't collect data. Sometimes they are following the halo effect in everything that they do. So the sales people doesn't want to create a tool that create evidence that not all of the things are driven by the sales team. So depending of the company, you are going to have different challenge. But at the end of the day, is photography of how well the company is working.
Daniel, are the challenges similar in Europe as compared to Latin America and North America?
I do believe that for most companies, they know where the data is theoretically, and they know the data owner. But some of it is with media agencies who have less incentive to cooperate with a vendor like we are. So it's really hard to get them to work on time and work exactly, and really important to foster strong relations there, because for them we're just they're not even earning money with us. We're just the other vendor of their client, and not prioritized. So I guess that's a good thing to watch out for in EMEA. And then, of course, having backups and redundancies for people. Like if people are out 2 weeks, then or even longer, then you need somebody else who can work the filtering logic, better documentation. So you need so you don't delay projects because of one data source.
Archana, what about India subcontinent? What typical data? I know there are tons of it, but
yeah, I think this is the challenge is not just regional. I think it's global, universal. If I can say that. And I have one word for it. Is the biggest unique challenge is confusion. So there always seems to be. It's not the missing data. It's confusion around that data. And I've seen this across even in my previous role, right? Whether it was EMEA or even APAC, is organizations, they have plenty of data. And it sits everywhere. We know that in different places, owned by different teams. It's just that it means so different to different people, the same data point. So marketing data, or it is behavior or revenue. So even before you start the MMM, there is so much disagreement on what the actual truth is. And I'm seeing this consistently even with the largest global brands as well. But one thing I can say that comes out of this confusion and with experience is, even with the best brands, is that it forces clarity, MMM. Once it is done, I have seen clients actually thanking on the call, saying that they finally understand, where their data is sitting, And it is now also clear to them because it was all around the place and what it really means. So I think that clarity then that is really required. The teams then become more so interactive, I would say, when you talk about your next MMM project with them, and it helps them obviously make better decisions. So I think it's not the readiness, it is more an organizational problem that I see as a unique challenge.
Tony, I'm coming to you last, but people say that Metas of the world, Googles of the world have excellent data infrastructure. They know where the data resides, where every data goes. But have you seen the same kind of problems expressed by Josue, Daniel, and Archana play out in, say, Meta as well?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one thing that Meta and some of the others have is they're more disciplined up front about data structure and data storage, but data labeling is still a challenge, right? Like, as has been mentioned, you can have like a different person calling something slightly different or using a slightly different data table. And that happened at Meta as it would in other places. I think the discipline up front is one of the things that solves this. But until you've been through this process and everyone's like, now I understand why we had to label things in that way, because it's a nightmare trying to find it. When you've gone through it once or maybe twice and you felt the pain, then you are a bit more disciplined up front. The two other things that I'd mention, just from a regional point of view, I think consistency of data or quality of that data across markets can make a difference for some of the variables. So for instance, you can have on a global basis, like if you're looking at competitor activity, the strength of that data might be different in some markets. It might be easier to obtain in some markets than others, or it may be worse or less persistent in some markets. So presuming that that's the same across all regions, I think can be a challenge sometimes. We would always put competitor activity in there. And then you realize that, let's say in a market like the Middle East, that data is actually pretty thin compared to another market where it's well structured. The other thing that I thought was worth mentioning is that I'm seeing far more as some of the digital projects and like specifically digital projects on a platform just like Meta, like the way those campaigns are set up makes a big difference, and the same will be true of Google. You've got like a campaign level, an ad set level, and an ad level, and all of those three things and the different ways that the data is recorded. You could be recording a different buying or optimization technique at each of those three different levels. You can't presume, or it's difficult to presume, that you've definitely got the right information that you need at each of those levels. You really need to define what things you're doing at each level. So is it a targeting effort that you're doing at the campaign level? Is it at the ad set level? Those kind of things need to be defined well as well, rather than just assuming they're persistent across each campaign in each country.
Robson, I don't want you to feel left out. The next question is for you, right? This is regarding experimentation. Just last year, we saw that OpenAI acquired StatSig and EPO was acquired by Datadog. What explains this sudden movement and, again, maybe a renaissance in experiments, so as to speak, but why do we see such a sudden surge in experimentation?
Well, that's a great question. I think there are two reasons. First is that the industry is running out of places to hide in terms of finding out what works. First, there was the cloud fever, like every company had to move to the cloud. Then it was like machine learning, deep learning, and now it's Gen AI. But at the end of the day, okay, even if you can predict whether a transaction is highly likely to be a fraud, you need to experiment or to think causally on how to implement policies to make fraud harder. So you are left with the how to or what to do questions. And by acquiring StatSig, basically OpenAI buys a lot of data to train their models on causality, on understanding the cause and effect relations that AI per se cannot do. And it's a topic that even Judea Pearl acknowledges. So you have to teach the LLMs to think causally, otherwise they can only do predictions. And then there is also this topic that AGI is an ideal, but companies are noticing that there's a lot of market to explore without AGI. For instance, by making an assistant or consultant AI on how to experiment, you're helping a lot of product managers that had to go to amplitude, set an experiment manually or a feature flag manually, and now they can simply even enable the audio too and say, hey, set me an experiment to test this and that hypothesis, and it's going to happen anyway. So I think those are the two reasons. First, it's a strong consultancy platform and product that OpenAI is going to deliver. And second is basically how can we make AIs understand the world, the cause and effect relationship. And there's a huge training set that was not available over the internet for OpenAI to train the models.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Archana, I know you've been a vocal advocate of experimentations. Yeah, what do you think is going to happen in this domain?
Yeah, actually, I'm loving it because, what's interesting is, look who is acquiring experimentations now, right? Like these guys, they're not marketing companies. They are the ones who are helping with decision making, and they are the infra companies, as we can say. So I think as AI is becoming, starting shipping so vigorously and continuously, I think organizations really need those guardrails, and they need to understand, what's working before, the trust breaks, or, everything, the revenue and the user experience breaks. So I feel experimentation then becomes that control layer. So it's no longer about just, marketing tests. It's about being safe. It's about how we can safely scale those decisions. So experimental platforms, when they are getting absorbed, I think it's really good with the AI stacks, because now it is not sitting separately as an analytical tool, but it is just part of the whole package. So I think this is great, works well.
Just following up on that, this is a related question, Archana. Where do you see the biggest misuse of experimentation? I know you talked about the good stuff right now, but where do you see the biggest misuse of experimentation? Is it A/B testing? Is it geo experiments, or is it like the brand lift studies? Where do you see it happening more?
Very honestly, I love this question because this is what was used as the base of the framework, that we came up with at Truecaller. Is I think it is brand lift studies. Most misuse is because we are talking about recall, we talk about awareness, and that is treated as business impact. They are not, because brand metrics, they are not really linked to behavior. They're very easy to overinterpret over there. So that is why, in fact, we introduced our trust and confidence framework. So that is what will, help you in those moments of truth. So instead of stopping at recall, with your brand lives, we are focusing on, on whether people are feeling safer. Because when you feel safe, you feel confident about what you're doing. So attention, doesn't have any value, unless and until it is going to convert into something. So therefore, that is a more willingness for you to engage. So I feel that, when you're going to connect all these brand metrics to behavior, that is when actually your brand lifts become meaningful. So to come back, brand lift is the most misused, and it should make meaningful difference to what you are observing or measuring. Yeah.
Robson, I know you started your own consulting as well. Where do you see the most misuse happening?
Well, I could list all of them because there are ways to do bad and good research in those aspects, right? I agree with Archana that, for instance, the concept of brand lift, there's a Nobel Prize in economics that say we shouldn't trust what people say. We should trust revealed preferences, what they do, where they put their money. So why would I trust the response to a micro survey that says, have you heard about this? Would you like to buy this? Otherwise, those people would be buying this if they really consider it. So it depends on the question that you are asking and also on how to make the response trustful. But even in geo experiments, if you don't plan accordingly, if you don't make an effort to validate that the geographic control unit you're picking is really similar, not only on the outcome or the KPI, but also on other contextual variables, you're not comparing comparable things. Even in A/B testing, like the simplest and mostly popular way of measuring things in the industry, you see product people setting those things in platforms without respecting, for instance, the power calculation, the sample size calculation, the duration of the experiment, picking results, like seeing results in the middle of the time window without waiting for it to finish. So whatever you do, whatever you try to teach people, they can misuse it. And I think that's why either you should study what you're doing, which is the concept related to vibe coding that you mentioned, could be a great tool or could be a really harmful one, or you should use platforms that offer some guardrails, some safeguards, so you don't make bad decisions because you are ignorant about this. Because it's not the case. We are interested in data, but there are people that are just, I just want to make a decision and I want to be informed about it. I don't want to get a textbook and read about theory itself. So yeah, that's it. I think maybe I talked about all of them. I don't know which one I would pick, but that's it.
Okay. Joshua, what do you think?
I
Which is
think
the
that the volume of misuse is always in parallel with the popularity of a method. So I choose A/B testing, but just because of the popularity, of the method. Because GeoLeaf, for example, is more complex to do, so less people do, so the misuse is on A/B. And if I don't know what is the opinion of the other people in the panel, but I feel that the main issue, I mean, if we see experimentation as a whole, is the sample size. Sample size, I feel that is the biggest issue that we have as a experimentation community, let's say, and it doesn't. Yeah, that's the main issue that I see on experimentation.
Daniel?
I also go for A/B tests. Sample size, of course, is an issue, but mostly the ones with insufficient sample size don't make it to my desk, I guess. But what I see is the big issue with A/B tests is that you often have go dark digitally versus exposure group. And you measure only like the starkest difference you can have at that point, because it's basically going from 0 impressions or 0 clicks on Google search to something. Right, so and this is the steepest part of any response curve, and you're overestimating things. And the reality is that there's a part of the response curve where you go from 3 impressions to 4 impressions, and that's likely to be much flatter. So, to think you get an overall assessment of the effectiveness of media by looking only at the steepest parts of the response curve is very dangerous, because you're going to overestimate the effect of media. That's why I would say A/B test.
Very interesting perspectives. Shifting gears, now going to causality. I know Robson is very interested on this. Just like experimentation and causality is also gaining a lot of eyeballs. Alembic, a causal AI company, raised $145 million in November 2025. Has causality's time in the sun finally arrived? Why have organizations started to care about causality all of a sudden, Robson?
Great, thank you. First of all, there is a construction nearby. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, no problem at all.
Okay, thank you. So I think that causality measuring tools have been around for more than a century, and in philosophical terms have been around for millennia. And I don't think that organizations are embracing causality now just because they are intellectual curious about it. As I said before, it seems like we are out of ways to make decision because, well, we use machine learning and we can predict the person that is most likely to subscribe to a product. But what should we do not only to target those people that are really likely, because the market is saturated. I want to target people in a way that I make them more likely to subscribe, right? So like, what kind of interventions can I implement in order to elicit a behavior? And this is a field that belongs to causality. And I'm not advocating to the way I see causality. There are different approaches, but in essence, it's not about training models and trying to find people that are like those. It's about changing the behavior in a way that you can measure how much likely this person is going to become in a given direction that the company wants. So yeah, I think this is the number one reason why companies are going in this direction, and also because it's becoming cheaper, right? It's becoming cheaper in a way that machine learning can be used as a mean to estimate causal effects. So now that everybody knows how to predict and they use prediction to inform decisions as well about fraud, about churn, about whatever, we can just add another layer on top of this and try to measure causality. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, great. Just a follow-up question on that, Robson. I know we are from the world, but it took a lot of, educating people to make people understand the nuances of and people consider causality be a little bit more tougher than How hard would it be to convince people and make them adopt causal methods? I'll go to you first, but I would love to hear from the panelists as well. Yeah, first to you, Robson.
Okay, that's a great question. And I have two takes on that. I think that there are two problems. First, many vendors try to provide good measurement, good causal measurement, but at an operational cost that is too high. For instance, well, you have to choose half of the country to turn off your advertisement campaign. So, well, why would I do this? So there's a lot of skin in the game on the side of the company, your client, but in your side as a vendor, that is simply like, I'm going to tell you what to do, and if you don't want to do, then it's your problem, right? So, but at the end of the day, I believe that causality is what your clients want in marketing. If you convey to them the idea of what causality is going to tell you at the end of the day, when they listen to that, they're going to say, most of them are going to say, this is exactly what I need in order to find out where I should invest my money, right? But well, the way to obtain this, like the pure causal measurement, is too costly to the company. And the other one is that many marketing teams, they have their rewards attached to the KPIs that they're measuring. So if you go there, and I think someone mentioned about inflated KPIs. So if you go there to the team and says, hey, I use this difference in difference approach here, but the ROAS that you are saying is 10 is actually 2. They're going to shoo you away, right? Because at the end of the year, their bonus depends on having a ROAS of 10. And if you say it's going to be 2, you're not doing them any favor. So, well, I'm going to leave here the problems. I don't have a clear solution to those problems, okay?
Yeah, Archana, what's your take on this?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It is mostly organizationally hard than the maths of it. So what I've found out is, people, it takes time for them to be convinced. Am I still there? Because I cannot see me move.
Perfect, no problem. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So I think it's most about the legacy beliefs. Once that is established, then it is fine because they understand what they're going to get out of it. But yet there is a lot of resistance, and the resistance is because they're not comfortable. So once that is captured, once that is there, then they are, on board. So I feel the biggest challenge is about adopting is not the maths of it, it's just how comfortable they are about it or not.
Daniel, any takes on this?
I think causality is in fashion right now. So, I hear it much more often also from people that don't know what they're talking about with causality, but they're sure they need causal measurement. So there's definitely some buzz around it. But also, like from the side, I think, people are asking questions. They're asking questions, say, like, why do we underperform in Q4 2025? Can you please tell us from the other factors? We don't want to know about media. We invested heavily in that. We believe, the results, but please, can you tell us what else did we wrong? Was it delivery times or anything? So you're trying to answer questions that you could not answer with a conventional I guess. And these questions are being brought from the corporate space to the vendors. And even like being aware in some cases that it will be hard to answer this with an or it's not a definite answer, but they're kind of desperate for an answer in the first place. And they're like, even please try to answer it. We're aware this model is not set up to answer this. So I think there's a lot of dynamic for causal measurement coming up, and just vendors need to work with that.
Daniel, staying on that topic, right? I just remember that you had written an excellent post on LinkedIn that MMs are implicitly causal. I know Robson is going to stare at us I know that we are not making the claim that it's explicitly causal, but we are just saying that it is implicitly causal. Daniel, why do you say MMs are implicitly causal?
Because the companies are a causal machine. We're trying to invest money to buy media impressions to boost the sale of products that we have positioned at a certain price point and stockpile somewhere for people to buy it in a certain quantity. And all these things are preset by people in a certain order. So you can have the impressions first and then the spend. So you allocate a budget and buy media with that. So there are causal paths inside the organization and inside like the workings, and MMM is trying to discover these causal paths. Then there are other causal paths which we try to cut off or isolate, or they're not in question because sure, you can say there's a relationship between you spend media and buy, or you spend money and buy media and then you sell more stuff. But also what happens, of course, is you sell less stuff in a company and then the management, the board decides, hey, our sales are dropping, we need to invest more money in marketing. So the other causal direction may be true as well. And from this analysis of causal paths, we're deriving a causal model of the company. We're deliberately cutting off some paths that we're not interested in. We don't want to do research on management decisions affecting marketing budgets over time, but we're interested in what does this marketing budget do for this company in this market. And we're trying to causally explain it because then it enables the company to causally act because of that, right? To optimize their marketing budget and also assess these other production factors that also play a large role.
My next question is perhaps on behalf of all marketing measurement vendors, there are two schools of thought or two views. One is that the marketing measurement tools and solutions are harder to sell to companies with no historical usage of marketing solutions, or it is tougher to sell it to people with some historical background on usage of all these marketing measurement tools. What do you think is the hardest sell here, and how should marketing vendors should go about this? Question first to Joshua. How do you think any marketing vendor should go about this?
I mean, scientific mindset is the cornerstone of experimentation. So if the company doesn't have any kind of experimentation mindset in any of the areas, if any time that they want to grow sales, they go to astrology to see what they can do as a next step, it's impossible to sell something. I mean, especially the solutions that we are talking about are, I mean, for us is familiar, but is so kind of sophisticated. So if they don't have, for example, quarterly KPIs, and they don't have kind of management maturity, let's say, I feel that it's going to be impossible to sell a measurement solution.
Mm-hmm. Archana, perhaps you missed the part, where I was asking this question.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem. So just to repeat, I was just expressing that there are two views amongst marketing measurement vendors. One is that it is very hard to sell marketing measurement solutions, companies with absolutely no history of, marketing measurement usage, or is it, tougher to sell to companies with an established history of, using marketing measurement solutions? How should one tackle this problem?
I think we find that it is, for both, because the ones who are already having this, they also have their own biases. So, and we observe that daily. But especially with the ones who have no history, I think how we approach it is we start talking about by showing them the risk, So that works more in our favor. And I feel we have like major chunk of brands who are still relying very heavily on last click. Also because, it all goes to that last mile. Who is actually planning and doing everything for you? So I think it is the last mile that needs to be more educated and more informed than anyone else, and how comfortable. So it's all about, I said earlier also, all about the legacy, the beliefs that they bring in. So and also about more about platform attribution. That is what they are relying heavily on. So one common decision then, that they are doing is under investing on channels that are actually influencing everything that the outcome should be, what has been lined out, the total business outcome. So that is where we always find it challenging. So I think basic simple comparison is what my approach usually is saying this is what is happening to you when you're not doing what we are suggesting. These are our beautiful case studies that we are doing, and this is why you should be, irrespective of whether they come from a history or not. I think the best approach always is showing the risk of the FOMO, as I would say, is not being doing this with us. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, interesting. Tony, you've been quiet for long. Of course, we are not ignoring you. We can't ignore Gen AI too. So much seems to happen in the world of Gen AI, right? Just a couple of days back, Apple has inked a contract with Google, a multi-billion contract after, Apple had said that, there is no reasoning in Gen AI, but, all of, Apple's intelligence products like Siri will be now powered by Gemini. How do you see AI changing the marketing measurement landscape? Do you think it'll be used as a modeling tool, or will it be a reasoning, diagnostic, and a decision support layer?
Look, I think this kind of links back a little to the things we've been talking about. Like there's a human kind of behavior thing in a lot of these decisions, right? Like ease of use, fear of change, all of that kind of stuff, right? So I don't know exactly how the Gen AI world will definitely play out within this. But if we think about how or what AI could do and what it should do, and then how people actually use it, I see that it's super useful in augmenting our work. That's the way that we want it to be done. It shouldn't be a replacement, right? So if it can augment the things that we do at the moment, there's a number of things within the AI world that are great augmentation tools. So for example, machine learning was mentioned earlier. If we take it traditional AI as opposed to generative AI, like the augmentation that it can be done, we can learn far more about our campaigns, et cetera, by using something like machine learning. I think, though, that the augmentation that will probably be very useful is just in information finding. So instead of having to go back and try and dig out a PowerPoint, like what happened in the original days that I remember, and going back some way as we were talking about earlier on, like a presentation happens once a year in MMM, and then it sits in someone's drawer, and like no one ever looks at it again. And so, like the ability to get that information out and to socialize that information, that would be a great augmentation of how we actually operate, right? So if I'm able to go back and say, well, in 2023, in the first half of the year, how does my TV spend compare to Q1 of 2025? And in terms of the response that I'm getting and the impact it's having on sales, and I could do that in a GPT. I mean, that's really powerful augmentation compared to like having to rely on someone's knowledge or hope you could find the right PowerPoint. So I think that is the way that it should play out. I do fear, though, and this is linking back to the other things, that we just have a reliance on the easiest path as humans. We tend to do that. And so it might be that people just look for the simple solutions. And their vendor comes along and says, my AI solution is going to take care of everything for you. Will put us in a world like last click for a long period of time when everyone knows it's the wrong thing, but it's the easy thing. So we're going to use it. I hope that doesn't happen. I hope the causality remains the thing that we will go. Your work is cut out for you, Robson, I think, on this, of making sure that causality lands with everyone the way that it actually should.
Yeah, everybody grab a book copy of Everyday Causal Inference. Yeah. So yeah, moving to the next topic, right? Just yesterday, we had a very interesting chat with a prospective client, and they were a little bit confused. They had heard about unified measurement, and but actually they didn't have much of a clue whether they should start with experimentation or MMM or causality. And also there is this big talk about the unified truth. Everything must converge to one single ROI. How do you see this playing out, Joshua? This is a question to you. Is there a particular ideal order of doing things? Is it MMM experimentation causality or experimentation MM causality, or all of them should be let alone to answer different things?
I don't have the crystal ball to see what is going to be the impact, let's say. But But what I can say is, if we want to democratize experimentation in every part of an organization, agents need to play an important role in this revolution, because we cannot sit an experimentation expert hand by hand with any person in the, in an organization. It's impossible. So we all say, hey, we should be cautious about agents and Gen AI regarding experimentation. And I agree, and I understand the concerns. In the other hand, most of the time it's impossible to do proper experimentation with historical data, because most of the time all the hypotheses were done wrong, all the data was bad collected. So Gen AI agents need to play a important role there, that is going to improve even the role of the expert afterwards. So yeah, and especially in markets like Latam or all the emerging countries, it's not, of course, agentic AI is not going to be the cutting edge, the high-end solution that you can do. But in the other hand, it's going to democratize advanced measurement for smaller firms, and that is going to be a great it's going to be like a leapfrogging jump for emerging countries.
Mhm. Archana, do you have any set list of order to pursue?
Yeah, honestly, I have a very strong answer to this, and what I believe. I don't think there is one unified truth, because there can't be. There is one unified decision, of course, because MMM is going to help you decide, where you should invest. Experiments are going to validate whether what you have decided is going to work for you or not. And then the causality is going to explain, why it worked. So each method is answering a very different question, and none of it is sufficient on its own. So when they come together is when, leadership will need to make a real budget or a strategic call. So therefore, there cannot be one unified truth. There is a one unified decision. So yeah, that's
Yeah,
my, yeah.
I agree with you. Excellently put. Daniel, any thoughts?
Causality would come first to put things in order and to I just have a basic concept. I don't think we can build a good MMM without an understanding of causality, and probably also without the understanding of causality you can set up experimentations. Then for small companies, I would say MMM should actually come first before, or could come first before experimentation. For large companies, other way around. Reason is large companies, have, if they want to try something new, like, do a TikTok channel with like a small scale influencer, they won't see the lift in there. It will be very hard to detect any signal from that in their top level revenue data, which we're talking about billions of revenue, for example. So that will be hard to determine from an MMM, but you could get a read on this in an experiment. Because you can set it up in a smaller scale. For small company, they might be even, do the campaign with the influencer, and they will see an immediate impact of their sales because just, small scale volume. So I would suggest for them to start with setting up the MMM and take it from the MMM to, start with the experimentation and set up the MMM from the experimentation results, because that's probably more informing, and you don't have as much data frame to work with.
Robson, I know Daniel partially, answered your question, but do you have anything to add? Is there a particular order that you would recommend?
Well, I think first of all, some companies will not even have to order it, because it's worthless to apply some of those tools. And the other part of my answer also, I think it aligns more with Archana, that I think that experiments are for more tactical decisions on local optimizations, and MMMs are like I think that someone in the last Fireside chat said like a compass, right? So I see them as answering different things. And the
It
only
was
experience
Joshua.
I had,
Yeah.
it was Joshua. Okay. I think that the only experience I had working in a unified measurement platform to reconcile all this information to come up to the last layer, it was not very, as we say in Brazil, orthodox. It was not a very beautiful way of doing things to reconcile those numbers. So I think it should not be the goal of the company to have this single number unless there is a clear reason for that.
Mhm. Tony, any final thoughts?
I think most of the things have been answered already. I mean, I think that companies that don't do measurement, like they really need to start. And I think that we can kind of convince ourselves that everyone is measuring and thinking about causality. And I suspect that probably upwards of 50% of people don't really understand what causality is. Even if you explain it to them, they don't get it properly. And so I think, like, starting with something. But the important thing is, like, bad measurement is even worse, right? And so I see people kind of struggling with this idea. It's like, do I leap in to do a piece of measurement that I know is going to be bad as I'm advising them? Like, that's even worse than doing no measurement at all. So I do think starting somewhere. I think MMM is a big thing to bite off straight away as being the thing. It's my preference because I believe that it gives companies like the answers to things that could be understood at board level, whereas the intricacies of some of the other things, it's very difficult to understand outside of the marketing team. So I kind of personally prefer that because it can be translated elsewhere. But my most important thing is like bad measurements even worse than doing no measurement at all. So starting with something that is actually good is a fundamental.
Yeah, so my next question is, extension of what we just asked. Many companies, of course, they want to adopt, MM and experimentation. We have seen a huge uptake in the companies wanting to do this. Archana, you are, in a unique position that, you took up a very challenging role very recently, global measurement and analytics at Truecaller. Is there any top three things that you would like them to tick off first in terms of, being ready for this MMM and experimentation? Is it data? Is it statistically trained people, or is it organizational buy-in?
Yeah, I think you already have the answer in your question. And to be very direct here, I would say the first thing that I would like to take off is, there needs to be one single owner of measurement truth fact. Because if you're going to have 5 team members, who own those 5 numbers, the measurement is already broken and it takes way too longer to take off. And secondly, I think companies need to have behavioral data, not just media metrics. That is such a strong focus here, especially in APAC. Impression, clicks, they are not going to explain decisions, they're not going to help, but behavior does. And that is why you need to start measuring the lifts. That is why we even introduced the framework, of truth and confidence, trust and confidence. So start measuring, start seeing those differences, start seeing those lifts. And third is leadership. They have to be willing to be able to see those uncomfortable results, because that is what is going to give you the real results. So measurement is always, you're going to see challenges, someone's favorite channel or someone's narrative is not going to be proven right. So without all these three, even the most sophisticated models, they're not going to change a single decision. And your measurement is only going to work when the leadership is ready to act. And therefore, it needs to be, at one place so that, the time to convert and the time to turn around is much more faster. Yes.
Daniel, what are your top 3 things to tick off?
So yeah, unified ownership and championship in the company, I think, would be most important. Have a really buy-in commitment, and also some idea how to actionize to put those into action, the insights, to have an honest conversation about how things what you do with things don't go as planned, as results aren't as planned, or if data can't be delivered, if there are holdups, if stakeholdership changes. Have that set up in a positive way, in a realistic way, and then also, I guess, some commitment to grow together. To say, hey, like, we might start this in a small position just to make it actionable, then we commit on where do we want to go over this over the next couple of years with this. But this is also, I guess, coming from my perspective, because coming back to what Tony said, this is not like a presentation that would disappear in a drawer, but basically we're feeding a tool, and everybody's taking, or potentially can take a look every day. So it's like it's much more omnipresent in the company, hopefully in a way, than just a PowerPoint presentation once a year, which would be more for medium-sized or small enterprises, I guess.
Yeah, don't want to promote our product Synapse, but it's exactly what it does. But yeah, I don't want to talk too much about it. But yeah, Tony, what are your top 3 things to tick off, or anything unique you want to say?
So it's really difficult to know in which order to put them, right? Like I would normally say data first, like because everything's based on data. If your data is inaccurate, then nothing else works, right? But I think the organizational buy-in is also kind of super important, or at least the organizational understanding of why this investment needs to happen. And that's for the resource that goes behind it, both the tools you need to have and the right trained people. So I find it really difficult to say which of these is most important. Data is fundamental. Without the right people, you don't get the right use of that data. Without the organizational buy-in, you can't do any of this stuff. So I don't really know which order to put it in. All of those are important.
Josue?
Well, I will say that there is 3 things. First, the company needs to adopt a scientific mindset, and we know because that allows an easy resourcing for experimentation. Second, should be the generation of hypotheses from the business owners, because that creates credibility for all the experimentation process and from all the programs of the experimentation. And the third one should be, as all mentioned, data collection from with a business expert on experimentation, let's say, with one responsible. But if you don't first start with mindset and hypothesis by business owners, the rest is going to be a failure, because you are going to have very fancy tools without credibility and proper resourcing within the organization.
Robson, I know we have not left any points for you, but yeah, if you have any unique points to share with us.
I think it was answered. In summary, is like we all want to use data. If we don't know how to use data properly to answer the questions we need to, let's hire the people who can, and let's listen to them. And as Josue mentioned, let's build a hypothesis with them, because they know data, but they might not know well the business. And now that we have those two ingredients, let's go to collect the data. Otherwise, we could have collected the data without the proper method and get low quality data that doesn't help us answer the question. I think that's it.
Great. So now we have come to the last question. This is something known as the stick the neck out time. What are some unique, wild predictions that you have about any facets of marketing measurement? It could be causality, experimentation for the year 2026. And we will perhaps, circle back on your predictions maybe next year, same time, January 2027. Going first to Archana, what are your predictions for the year 2026?
Well, I think, I'm actually very confident that, the significant share of media budgets is going to be allocated by machines. So that is what 2026 is looking like. And platforms that are going to influence trust, going to influence the intent, they are going to benefit the most. And therefore, one needs to keep proving their impact, with credible measurement going on, always on that. So yeah, that will survive them.
Mm-hmm. Robson, what are your predictions?
She just mentioned it. It is that basically, for instance, what I don't know how it works around the world, but here in Brazil, media agencies are pretty common. So you have somebody that is specialized in this industry that you're operating, and this person is going to trade for you, like get your marketing budget and allocate it in different channels. And I don't understand why it's not carried out yet by agents, because I think that, for instance, the performance max that Google offers is already trying to do this in a single channel. Why don't we do this for all the channels that those small and medium businesses operate? So I would go for this prediction.
Daniel?
On the technological side, I would say we will see agentic AI building models from instruction sets, or advancing as far as producing raw models, then as expert assess and validate. I think we're ready for that. Also, I think I've seen prototypes of agentic AI allowing to question results, and just to query basically the model results, and that's very comfortable. So I'm pretty sure we're going there. On the media side, I would say we'd probably see a renaissance of out of home cinema, mail drops, any classical offline channels that first of all can capture people's attention without any filtration or the distraction from other devices. So I'm pretty optimistic about offline media for this year.
Joshua?
Well, I see agents allocating media budgets all around in the wrong way. Why? Because I think that they are going to be informed by the wrong signals. Most of the companies that doesn't inform in a proper way agentics, so they are going to take wrong decisions based on average and estimations that doesn't make sense for the context of a business. In the other side, I feel that this year is going to be popularized the use of synthetic data. It has been for a while. And I think this year is going to be the year that most of the people is going to be fluent on the use of synthetic data. I don't know if it's going to be good or it's going to be creating sand castles in the air. But anyways, I feel that synthetic data is going to be a topic this year.
Tony?
I'll give one less controversial and one more controversial. The less controversial, the industry will get distracted by measuring GPT ads. Like it's going to be a tiny bit of people's return, whatever they get this year. Everyone's excited about it because it's a shiny new thing. I think we'll go down the rabbit hole of doing that. Someone will come up with some sort of new metric, like attention being the thing that actually matters in GPTs, whatever they come up with, and then swan off on the new yacht they've managed to create from getting the industry to believe that, that this is the important thing. So I think that's one thing. We'll all get distracted, or we'll be forced to be distracted by that. The slightly more controversial agents. I think that agent platforms and some of them will fall over this year, and I think they will fall over from the point of view that people don't really understand the underpinning that's needed to keep them alive. And I think that people will rush into building them, and I think they're absolutely the right thing to build. But I think in this year, we don't have a wide enough understanding in the marketing industry or experts who can actually implement them in the right way in all organizations. And so I think that the underpinning of these and the ability to talk to each other and the ability to converse properly, pretty much the way that Joshua was talking about a second ago, like I think that's what's going to force them to fall over in 2026. We'll get a lot of questions over why do we invest all this money because it's not working the way that we thought. It's not magic, right? And I think we'll begin to figure that out, but it's going to take us a while. So that would be my more controversial thing. The agents, you're absolutely the answer, but they will fall over because people will get them wrong this year.
Interesting. Very interesting predictions from all of you. We will reconvene again in 2027 and see, which of your predictions were right or wrong. But yeah, this has been a great pleasure. Thanks to all of you. We have come to the end of the Fireside Chat, and I'm sure that, we will have more of these, going forward. But yeah, I want to leave the last 15 minutes for the audience. If any one of you have any questions, please raise your hand and, you can address your question to any one of the panelists. Or if it's to all the panelists, we can take it here. Alternatively, you can type your question in the chat also. I will read it out to the concerned panelists as well.
Can I ask a question? If no one's asking a question so far, I'd love to know what the other panelists think about like the geographic spread of knowledge in measurement and particularly MMM. Like this is a great panel you've managed to assemble from different people around the world without it kind of gravitating to the US. We've talked about some US stuff, but I'd love to know what other people are thinking. I'm seeing so much more talent coming out of non-US markets. So I'd love to know what other people are seeing in that. Or are we just all going to get sucked up into the US way of thinking again?
Maybe Archana, you can go first. You're on mute, Archana.
I think what I'm seeing in the market is we have a lot of MMM experts already, and there is like even organization itself themselves, they have these little pods that they're doing. So the education, awareness, everything is out over there. And in fact, I'm seeing a lot of young talent, who is very much interested. And especially in India, if you go to see, the analytics force is like a force to begin with, right? I mean, any other youngster you're seeing these days is doing analytics. Everyone is almost an MMA expert out over there. So it's very interesting how the next 2-3 years are going to pan out in this area. In fact, but how this particular vertical also has grown, and therefore every organization is now more adaptive. So it's only the leadership that needs to be convinced. I feel the force is there, the knowledge is there. In fact, quite honestly speaking, I get a lot of resumes also wanting to know that, how much more we could expand into our team, and they are very keen to join. And it's because they are seeing, the returns that can be brought in for clients. And even there are a lot of influencers I can see on the scene. Like if you're on social, you see, and if you, of course, you are, on that kind of a feed, you see a lot of youngsters out over there. So it is not just us with a lot of experience sitting in this field, but there are a lot of new entrants, new experts, and the context that they bring, the speed and the agility that they bring to the fore is extraordinary. And I'm really looking forward to, how this is going to shape in the next 2-3 years, in fact.
Joshua?
Well, I think that in measurement, you see the same patterns that in the rest of the globalization. If you go to high-end top companies of UK, Brazil, India, or Australia, you are going to find the same standards. You are going to find the difference in the middle ground, in the SMB. Let's say there is where you are going to find difference between the different, let's say, geographics. And the local knowledge play a special role there to make to make possible the adoption of the measurement, because it depends of different myth that we have in the different and different mindset that we have. But I am sure that if you compare the way that an MMM is done in, I don't know, one of the biggest retailer in India and one of the biggest retailer in Latam, is going to be the same. It's going to be the same, and the level of the people is going to be more or less the same. Everyone speak English, and the standards and the reference are going to be the same. SMB is where the challenge is. And the second point regarding the expertise on geographics and territories, I feel that especially on MMM, maybe not in causality, but in MMMs, there is a huge advantage if you have deep knowledge of a region. Because, just for instance, February in Brazil is Carnival, and everything is affected by that. And if you don't know that, it's kind of difficult to be fast doing experimentation. If you know Mexico, you know that the weather in the north is totally different from the south, and because of that, all the MMMs are affected. So to have that, to have in consideration all that local nuances, the geographic knowledge play a difference yet.
Robson, I know you are still in the influence of USA on the same Western Hemisphere. What is your take?
I don't have an opinion about this. I think that knowledge is so, I mean, there are less and less barriers to knowledge, be it this knowledge institutional, geographical, and so on, that geographic differentiation is not as it was before, you know? So you come from, I worked with people that studied in Princeton and people that studied from in a countryside university, both had a PhD and they performed similarly because they basically studied the same books, which are classical books, and now they have access to LLMs that can help them do research and so on. So I think in the end of the day, it's mostly about the resilience of the professional and less about where the professional comes from.
Daniel, I know you're across the pond, as they say.
Yeah, but I'd also make the geo difference argument, maybe from a different perspective. Even at the top levels, I've recently been to South Africa, and we had a client analyze the media, realized out of home really works terrifically well there. And then like asking yourself, why is that? And I arrived in South Africa. Drove from the airport to town, and everything's just a huge traffic jam. And you've got this giant billboards with video ads in many cases on it, and you realize, okay, the reason why this works is because people sit in traffic all the time and they don't have anything else to do but look at the billboards. So there, I think there's some valuable local knowledge in every market for every company to be gleaned if you're careful to listen to people, and not in any instance can you just go there and see it, but it might well be that something else plays out different in terms of online display or like text messaging. People use different messages, so it's interesting to know that. I still think that like these things being driven by United States research foremost are still also very generally applicable across many things. And for many companies, we're looking at investments in very streamlined ways. If you look at what goes to Google, if you look at what goes to Meta, or maybe even classic TV ads could be very similar. So we're talking about 70-80% of media budgets that are definitely very comparable across countries across the globe. So I still think we have a good, foundational framework for thinking about these things from the US.
Thank you, Tony, for sparking this question. And thanks to all the panelists for your insightful answer. There's one question from one of our audience. It's from Vidya. How does the successful, what does the successful MM look like after 6 months after delivery? I would say that, before passing the baton to panelists, the same vendor is given a renewed contract. That's what a successful MM looks like, at least for us. But what do you guys have to say? Tony?
I think successful MMM means that people are actually acting on the results 6 months after they've received them, right? Like the worst thing can be, like I mentioned earlier on, that they just get confined to the graveyard somewhere and no one's actually doing anything. If the vendor's done a great job of explaining the results and explaining the actions that could be taken, and more importantly, the team's actually taken those actions, seeing a difference in 6 months when you go back to do another dip on the MMM and seeing that the implementation of the recommendations has made a difference to your results. I mean, that's success in 6 months if you could get there in 6 months in MMM.
Josue?
I will say that it depends of is the first MMM or is the 10th MMM that you deliver, right? Depending on that, success looks like different. But I will say that imagine that is the first MMM. After 6 months, the idea is the different decisions in the company, especially with media allocation, are aligned with the strategy. Because one of my insights from doing MMMs for first time is most of the actions that they took doesn't make sense with the strategy that they have. They are driving in all the directions. So after 6 months, if we are optimistic, all the people needs to be driving for the same direction.
Daniel, any thoughts on this?
If it's really ideal, it doesn't happen for every client, I guess. But then I would say the forecast we do is more precise than the client's internal forecast. And the client basically asks, how did you do that? And like, how did you figure that out? And you're saying, hey, like let's take a look what influenced this. Let's pick apart the factors and go from here, and then think about how can we use that and also your feedback to improve the MMM from here, to evolve, I guess. Trust, buy-in, but on a general sense, I guess.
Archana, final thoughts on this?
Yeah, definitely. I echo with what Tony mentioned first, that if the recommendations are taken, then, you're definitely going to see that money move, and you want to understand that those moves are really intentional and not just cosmetic. And I echo with what you also said, Venkat, that they start speaking about the next projects. They have MMMs in the planning conversations and the quarterly reviews. And, of course, you're going to have people challenge the results and all of that. But if it is pressure tested correctly, right? I mean, and then you start doing those tests, whatever you are seeing, it is validated correctly. And then you move it back into your experimentations. The third triangle that we talk about, the A/B testing, then the causality, and then MMMs, and all of it keeps moving. But that is how your 6 months are going to look like post MMM study is. So I think, and when the teams are also understanding what a saturation curve now means, they are able to, when they are planning, I think when it starts showing, even when it is not mentioned in front of them, those curves start, being visualized. I think that is when it has really, landed. So that is, then they will write the briefs more successfully and then define it much more better.
Great answers and a great question. Thanks for that, Vidya. We have one last question. We have just 1 minute to go. Anu, what's your question?
Okay, thank you everyone. This is really helpful. I'm sorry I can't switch on my video cam, but my question is kind of interrelated. Two questions. What do you think it's not gonna work in 2026? Is there anything except Gen I? And if Gen I, what is everybody doing to AI proof their career in 2026?
Yeah, any one of you want to go first? Great question, by the way. Thanks for that.
Yeah, I can talk very quickly about like AI and where it fits and how anyone can future-proof their career, right? Like AI is not going to do any of the things that involve context for the job, right? AI on its own is useless. It's all about people, and it's all about the use of people and augmenting what they do with AI. So that'd be the thing I would say would future-proof anyone's career. Managing people, like the skills of bringing people together and to teach them to use AI to answer the questions that are important to the business. That's the most important thing I think that will help to future-proof your career.
Anybody else?
I think we are going to face. I think we are going to face the amplification, an amplification issue. We all know data scientists running sophisticated libraries without business context, giving pure outcomes. Now we have data scientists in every corner because of LLMs, let's say. So because you don't need the expertise. So that's the issue. That's the issue. A lot of people running models without business context or fundamentals about the models. That's the main issue that I see, not only for 2026 but for the future.
Daniel, Robson, Archana, any final thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think doing just a one standing experimentation or is not going to work for you, because business cycles, they are moving so fast, so one has to be clued on in terms of move that fast too as well. But most importantly, I think, was it Joshua or Robson who said that is being that one size is not going to fit all. So consistency matters and having context matters. So one should be well aware of all the constraints, even the data constraints. And most importantly is, I think, personally, I would like to say is that if leadership is expecting certainty from measurement, because that's not going to help you, because I think the future is belonging to organizations that, they will accept what is the directional truth, they will act on it and always act on it. And then they have to continuously validate that, continuous testing. So that is what is going to work. If you do not do that, it's not going to not work. Yeah.
Daniel?
Thank you so much.
So the part where I get replaced by AI, or the part of me that can get replaced by AI, I'll try to replace that myself. That's, I guess, my answer. The other stuff, there's, as others have mentioned, there's a huge part of the job which can be automated and can be replaced. But I'm keeping that. But the other stuff, okay, goes away. Fine. Like building models sometimes feels like an 80s video game, very lo-fi, but really fun for me. Maybe I'll can't do that anymore in the future. It's sad, but inevitable, I guess.
Yeah, as I say, AI or not, plumbers are going to be in demand in the future. I know you are the plumber
So-
for MMM, so yeah, you will be in demand, and so will we be. Robson, any final comments?
Yes, I think the question was about what's not going to work anymore. And I think like bullshitting is not going to work anymore simply because it's too cheap to check now, right? So I could write code on MMM and offer like a massive, beautiful platform, but people simply can check at zero cost. For instance, I have this aunt that used to spread fake news, but now even she can go to ChatGPT and say, hey, is this true or fake? You don't have to research anymore extensively about whatever topic you need. You can confirm or disconfirm things too cheaply. So, well, selling low quality things, I think it's not going to work anymore as a marketing measurement vendor or whatever kind of professional.
Excellently put. All great answers, and I would extremely thank all the participants here, and of course, thanks to all our eminent panelists. Thanks for the wonderful questions. So we'll sign off, and we hope that 2026 is going to be a great year for marketing measurement. Yeah, we will circle back again in 2027, perhaps with an expanded panelist, but we will definitely check whether their predictions came true or not. Thank you once again, everyone. It has been a pleasure.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
very much.
hosting.
Thanks, everybody. It was great. Bye.
Cheers.
Have a great one.